Hello, this is Science for Cycle 3, Week 8. Today we're talking about the nervous and endocrine systems. So the Bible verse at the top of your page you can start with, and it's from Romans, and basically just talking through with your students that we are accountable to God with our thoughts, and that even with our thought life in our brains that we need to be glorifying God through our thoughts. And then you can move on to talking about the nervous system first. You can review the 30 parts of the nervous system that we learned in week 4, I believe, of our memory work. And then have your students think of something, maybe ask them to think of what they had for breakfast. Have them sense something so you can hum a tune and then they can sense it with their ears. Maybe have them give you a thumbs up that they're sensing it. And then have them do some sort of action. So you can have them all clap their hands quickly. And then you can describe that all 3 of those things that they just did were actually required action by their nervous system. So to kind of give a preview that the nervous system is really involved in everything we do. So there's some diagrams of the nervous system, and as you're talking through them, you can have your students start coloring their brain body parts. So I believe the brain is to be gray, and then the spinal cord here coming down should be gold. Each tutor will have a pack kind of like this that says the week number and your class, and it will have all the crayons that you need. So each class will have enough crayons for every student. And the body parts are already labeled with students' names. So then you will paper clip these back together, student by student, and we will keep a paper clipped section for each student so that in week 12, when we finally assemble our bodies, your students will have all of the pieces that they need already together and colored as we go through them each week. All right, so talk through the brain and what it does as your students are coloring their brains. And then there's a little exercise that you can do to help demonstrate how involved the brain is and everything. And so I have a few helpers here who are going to help me demonstrate this exercise. Come on out. Get back in the order that you were, please. And pick up your thing. Okay, so you will have more students in your class, but the purpose of this exercise is really to demonstrate that the brain and nerve messages have to be sent for every action that we take, everything that we sense, everything that we do requires action from our brain that travels to the nerves and back from our nerves to our brain everywhere in our body, and that we're doing this all the time really, really quickly, okay? So you can start by telling the story. It's around noon and your stomach is getting hungry. So I'm gonna play the messenger. We have the stomach, the eyes, and the brain. You're gonna, again, have more body parts in your class. So the stomach is going to give me a message.
I'm hungry.
Okay, so I, as the messenger, I'm gonna go to the brain and I'm gonna say, hey brain, the stomach is hungry, all right? And the brain now is going to send a message to the eyes to look for food. Okay, brain, say eyes, look for food.
Eyes, look for food.
Okay, now I'm the messenger again. You guys will be more spread out in your class, but now I'm gonna come to the eyes and I'm gonna say, hey eyes, the brain says you should look for some food. All right, so the eyes are gonna start looking for food, and the eyes are going to say, I see a bowl of soup on the table.
I see a bowl of soup on the table.
Okay, so I'm gonna run back over to the brain and say, hey, the eyes see a bowl of soup on the table. All right, and in your classes, you'll have more body parts. So from there, your messenger can bring a message to the legs, asking them to walk to the table, and then you'll continue to have some messages so that your brain can instruct your body to eat the soup, and then instruct your body that it's too hot. So you can kind of play with that however you want for your age group. But basically the idea, thank you guys, the idea is to demonstrate to your class that the brain is involved in everything that we sense, everything that we think, everything that we do and perform actions. Our brains have to be involved in all of it. So it's just demonstrating how many messages are going to and from our brains from our brains to our spinal cords and out into the nerves in our peripheral bodies. So that's the purpose of that exercise, and you can use it however you think works best for your class. Then there's one more exercise that you can use if you would like, and this is an exercise just to demonstrate how quickly nerve signals have to travel throughout our bodies. And so you can have your class hold hands all together, and then starting on one end of the line, have them squeeze the next person's hand, and then once that person feels the squeeze, then they can squeeze the next person's hand, and basically see how fast you can get that squeeze from one end of the line to the other, having the students wait until they feel the squeeze on their hand and to send the squeeze to the next hand. And this is again demonstrating how quickly our nerve signals send the sign to our brains that we have felt that squeeze touch, and then how quickly our brains can send the nerve signal back down to our peripheral nerves and have us take the action of squeezing our neighbor's hands. So again, it's showing how quickly those nerve signals are happening and how frequently they have to be happening from our brains to our periphery and back again. All right, so that's the nervous system. The next part of the lesson is the endocrine system, and this one's a little bit harder for kids to understand. As you're starting to explain it, you can have them color their pancreas. Where's my pancreas? You can have them color their pancreases as you are explaining what the endocrine system does. But again, I want you to give a high-level overview that the endocrine system is another messenger system within our body, and it helps to control lots of different parts of our body and the ways that our bodies respond to things. So it's a really important system, but instead of sending nerve signals, our endocrine system works through signals called hormones, which are chemicals that are released by different parts of the endocrine system called glands within our bodies. And so our pancreas is one example of a gland, and that's the one that we're going to focus on because it's one of the easier ones to understand. The endocrine system is much more complex. And so as you talk through that, you can be having them color their pancreas as yellow, I believe, and then you're going to talk through what the pancreas does. So to do this is a super simplified example, but you can explain that the pancreas is a gland within the endocrine system that uses hormones that it sends out into the bloodstream as messengers to help control the amount of sugar in our bloodstream. So our bodies all need sugar in our bloodstream so that it can be accessed by cells who need it for energy. But we don't want to have too much sugar in our bloodstream, or it can become kind of toxic to our bodies. And so our pancreas is the gland that is part of the endocrine system that helps to control the level of blood sugar in our bloodstreams. So you'll have a cup like this with a line around it. And so I want you to start with having the cup filled with sugar up to that line. So the students all around can see that the sugar is reaching that line. And so you can explain to them that the line represents, our cup is going to represent our bloodstream, and the line here is going to represent the amount of sugar that we want to have in our bloodstream. So there's a right amount of sugar that we want to have in our bloodstream. So right now we're at the right amount of sugar. Then what you can do is take your sugar, and you can explain that when we eat a meal, especially a meal with a lot of sugar, let's say that we've got a cookie after dinner, then that cookie translates to much more sugar in our bloodstreams. All right, I'll make your bowls a little bit smaller, but I wanted to make sure that you could see this. Okay, so after we eat our meal, we have way too much sugar in our bloodstream, but our body has the endocrine system, our pancreas, that helps us to deal with that so that it doesn't stay too high. Our blood sugar level doesn't stay too high. And so in response to this level of sugar in our bloodstream, our body has created this messenger called insulin, which is a hormone that will be sent out by the pancreas. And the insulin causes our cells to actually take up more glucose so that the level of glucose in our blood goes back to the way it should be. All right, so our pancreas sends out insulin. That insulin causes our cells to take up more glucose so that, again, our body comes to the right level of blood sugar in our bloodstream. So you can do that a couple times if you want. For older students, you can bring in the fact that let's say that we haven't eaten in a really long time and our blood sugar gets too low, that our body actually has another chemical messenger as part of the endocrine that can help to deal with that, and that's glucagon. So that's going to help our cells to actually start breaking down some of the glucose and putting it back into our bloodstreams. Okay, so our body has chemical messengers called hormones that help to regulate the amount of sugar in our bloodstream. And that's true for a lot of functions that our body performs. Our hormones, as part of the endocrine system, help to regulate different levels of things and how fast our body metabolizes things and make sure that our bodies are working healthily. So again, the endocrine system is a little bit harder to understand, but you can emphasize again that similar to the nervous system, we've got messages being sent, and we've got our glands that are helping to control the way that functions work in our body so that we can stay healthy. All right, so again, after that lesson, go ahead and make sure that each student has a paper-clipped little section with their brain and pancreas together. You're going to be adding more to that in the next few weeks before we get to week 12 and put everything together. I'm also going to send the face this week because I think you might have a little bit of extra time. So if you have extra time in your classes, go ahead and have them color their faces as well. And this will go on the face of the body that they put together on week 12. All right, thank you.